Hawkeye, the man who never misses, is a ranged DPS character in Marvel Rivals. He is a long-range sniper-style character with a single-shot bow and arrow attack. His damage output will boost drastically if he's able to keep his cursor onto a target and is able to unleash a powerful attack that can kill most duelists in a single headshot. Being a sniper-style character, he is an opportunist that is quite vulnerable if you get up into his face. So players playing Hawkeye need to have excellent positioning and need to move preemptively to avoid incoming dangers. Being able to snap, flicker, aim, and hit a target with a headshot is really valuable on Hawkeye, who's definitely a character that requires precise tactical aim and will be a little bit more work for players that are new to the game to get good at. His basic attack is Piercing Arrow. This is a single shot arrow with a short windup. The amount of damage isn't anything significant, but if you hold down on the attack, you'll wind up the arrow, powering it up and increasing its damage output. Also notice the indicator in the middle of the screen. If you're pointing at a target, it's going to quickly charge up from 0 all the way up to 100. At 100 charge, and after a full drawback of the arrow, is the maximum amount of damage Hawkeye can do. The arrow at the end of your bow is going to pulse with purple energy, and then you're going to unleash a shot that deals massive damage, taking out 3/4 of the health of a standard duelist target with a body shot, or being a one-shot headshot. The ability to charge up your indicator has a maximum range. You can only charge it up if you're pointing at a target within 50 meters of you. However, the amount of charge you gain does not immediately drop, and doesn't apply to the target that you're pointing at, it applies to yourself. So if you're able to charge up the arrow to 100% pointing at a target within 50 meters, and then snap fire at a target that's further away, that target is going to take the full amount of damage. This is why snap accuracy is extremely important on Hawkeye, because you can take out a faraway target that thought they were safe by charging it up and then snapping and firing at them. Hawkeye can change his basic attack over to a blast arrow. Blast Arrow shoots out 3 explosive charges that detonate on impact. They'll have a decent amount of spread and will go pretty far from each other from a long distance. Each of these on their own do pretty pitiful damage, but the damage output of this is really high against targets that are close range to you. You have 3 charges, and you can use this to get targets that have gotten up into your face. The detonation AoE is pretty significantly large, and it's easier to hit on targets that are moving around quickly while nearby. This can be your primary way to deal with divers, and can work really well on any target that's managed to get on top of you. The spread is very significant, and it can't let a headshot, so try and aim for center of mass and fire it off really close to the target to get maximum out of the damage output. It's not very often you're going to want to be using this ability, as better positioning is going to be more ideal, and making sure you don't have targets get on top of you is a preferred tactic than to rely on these explosive arrows, but they're great in a pinch. Your left shift ability, Crescent Slash, is another option for when targets get on top of you. This will slash out your katana in front of you, hitting targets and knocking them back. You can use this to quickly get a target off of you and then charge up an arrow and fire it into them to take them out. A combination of using this, plus using your double jump, which you can activate by jumping twice, can get you a quick bit of distance away from a target. It will also potentially be used to knock targets off the map or knock them into dangerous situations. Your final option, if targets get up close to you, is your melee attack. Hawkeye's got a special melee ability. This does 2 quick slashes with his sword, but the special ability is that any incoming ranged attacks will be parried away. So not only can this be used if your targets get up close and personal to deal a chunk of damage if you're struggling to keep your cursor on the target, you can also use this when targets get their ranged attacks going on you and you're in a vulnerable position to be able to parry away ranged attacks and get yourself back to safety. Try and time it well. You only get 2 slashes and there's a brief cooldown before you can slash again. Hawkeye's E ability is his Hypersonic arrow. This will deal a chunk of damage to targets, and then after a delay, deal a second chunk of damage to anybody still in the area, and apply a slow to those targets. It'll also knock flyers out of the sky, causing them to fall to the ground for a short period. This is a really powerful tool to shoot into the enemy team if they're all clumped up, dealing a chunk of damage to all of the targets, and then applying that slow so it's easier for you to land your charged up arrows. Don't use this as a panic button when enemies have gotten on top of you, because the long delay and slow movement speed during the charge up is going to make it so enemies have an easier time taking you out. This should be a planned attack that you use ahead of time, knowing where enemies are going to be at. Hunter's Sight is Hawkeye's ultimate ability. When activated, enemies within range will begin leaving purple after images behind them. If Hawkeye attacks one of these after images, it counts as full damage dealt to the target. During his ultimate, he also charges his passive to 100% instantaneously when pointing at any target or after image, so he can unleash a flurry of arrows into these after images to deal huge chunk damage to the targets. You no longer have to do the full drawback and aim at the target to be able to charge your arrow up, so you can just unleash on them and wipe them out relatively quickly. After images do not receive headshots, and you still have to do the full drawback to get maximum damage out of each arrow, but a rapid fire of quick arrows into the after damages is going to deal higher damage than one single full arrow at a time. This is best used during a chaotic team fight when it's hard to keep your cursor onto targets. Activate it and unleash arrows into the purple ghosts, wiping out targets that you don't have to immediately aim at. Each after image lasts a certain amount of time and can receive multiple shots, so it can be really easy to quickly wipe out a target. Hawkeye is the supplier for a team up with Black Widow, which basically gives her access to his ultimate. But we'll talk about that in her video. So playing as Hawkeye, first up, you want to find your ideal sniper location. Find a generally safe area where your team is going to be able to block enemies from being able to get to you. Make sure you have a good open scope of the battlefield so you can get your cursor on targets that enter into the engagement area. You should pretty much always have an arrow wound up, waiting for targets to become available. Once a target comes into line of sight, start charging your passive on them. When your passive reaches 100, that's when you begin planning to unleash an arrow. You can unleash it on the target that you've already charged on, but as it's likely going to be a tank, it shouldn't really take them out. It's usually more ideal to wait for a squishier target to poke out from line of sight. Move your reticle from your charged up tank target over to the squishy that has just popped out, unleash the arrow trying to get that one shot. This will take a lot of work and practice to get good at, but you're going to want to be able to snap off of a target directly to somebody that has just come into line of sight and hit them with a quick headshot. Becoming familiar with the maps and knowing where headline is going to come out as targets move around corners is going to be really important to getting good at this character. It's usually best to move after unleashing a couple of attacks, so players aren't immediately ready for your current location. If you end up just staying still and constantly unleashing arrows from the same point, you're likely to become victim of a diver who's going to come in and try and take you out. It can be a real pain for you to take one of these guys down, because keeping your cursor onto a diver is relatively difficult, and each arrow that you miss has quite a bit of wind up before you have another arrow available. If somebody does get onto you, it's usually best to do a crescent slash and double jump to find yourself to safety, possibly following that up with your hypersonic arrow for a slow on them. Most of your damage is going to be coming from those basic attack arrows, and holding your other abilities to use in reaction moments when you need to protect yourself is going to be more ideal than constantly trying to get additional benefit out of them, using them and keeping them on cooldown. Be ready to switch over to your blast arrows and to blast into any diver that's managed to get onto you. 3 blast arrow volleys will melt a tank and will decimate into a dive duelist. Because of your support one-shot potential, you're actually a big counter to a lot of support ultimates. When enemy strategist has entered into their support ultimate, managing to land a charged up headshot on them is quite likely going to be able to take them out. Overall, Hawkeye is really good for players that are patient and like getting high reward from an effective attack, but don't need to be constantly attacking enemies and are okay just waiting out for the ideal moment. Your fully charged up headshot damage is even a huge chunk against enemy tanks. An enemy vanguard just coming right at your team can eat a bunch of headshots and be quickly wiped out faster than their strategists are able to keep them alive. A well-positioned Hawkeye railing arrows into the enemy team is extremely oppressive, and enemy teams are going to be super frustrated with you just existing in the game. So be ready for them to change their strategy and take you out. I hope this guide helps you become more like Hawkeye so you never miss a shot. In the next video, we're going to talk about Hawkeye's partner, Black Widow. Black Widow is the other style of sniper with the sniper rifle. She's able to do instantaneous headshots that deal a decent chunk of damage, and she has a powerful slow effect that can slow the entire enemy team. But we'll talk about all that next time.
Sazaze.